welcome back to Bunters Yard. Now if you watch my videos on any sort of regular basis, you know that I don't always wear gloves, probably 50-50, but today definitely wearing gloves because this is in town. This has arrived in the post from eBay. One of the many I bought because the chimneys are broken and they are really good value for money if you can be bothered to replace the chimney. I think it's cost like $5 or something like that, but it runs really well. So I'd have someone actually change the motor at some point. But anyway, so the chimney's gone, but we've got a plan for that. Buffers are missing, but I've got some of those in a box somewhere, and it's probably got, I'm not sure what it is. This DNA is horrible. I'm going to take off the those tension couplings. We're going to have 3-link couplings on there, and then all the that's all going to come off. So Smokey Joe, there's millions of them around, so let's have something a little bit different, and we'll flat that back and repaint it all. And yeah, so first thing, to take it apart, we need to give this a bit of a clean. Now things are quite straightforward to take apart. There's no screws. There are these 2 clips underneath, somewhere amongst the piles of DNA. Oh God knows what it is under there. So we just need to push those clips forward a little bit, and it's quite difficult just to try and get your fingers somewhere where you can sort of force it apart so the clips don't got to see them worse inside. Okay, so the motor we're going to leave in place. We don't need to take that out. We can drop that out with the chassis. So don't need to worry about those little sort of springy clips on the side. They hold the motor in, and if you forget, they're quite difficult to sort of get back into place. So don't need to do that. I'm just going to drop the chassis in with the motor out, and there it is in one piece. And we just leave that as it is, and it's not too bad inside. There's a bit of carpet or something in there, and some more human remains. Lovely. So, someone did ask me in a comment if I wash the models before we give them a paint, and I don't always do that. If it's new out the box, then I generally don't. If it's been if I've done anything to it, where it might get dust on it, then I probably would. But otherwise, in fairness, I don't. But anyway, we're going to give this a good old scrub with the little brush that I said about 8 videos ago that I was going to throw in the bin. I didn't. It's quite a useful little brush. And get rid of as much of this as we can. We need to give it a couple of washes, because once it dries, you'll notice there's still some whatever it is left on the model. So we'll give it a little dry, try and see where we are. So while this is in pieces, we'll give it a clean out first, and then a little service, so we know where we're starting from. As I say, it runs okay. I've run it already on the track, but I just want to give it a bit of a clean once we get rid of whatever's lurking around inside. Best we can. I'll give it a proper clean in a bit with a knife and scrape some of the old grease off and so on. But I'll just get out the any of the fibres that I can. It will be easy just to take the engine out, take the motor out, but it's those clips can be sometimes they're a nightmare, and it's much more dramatic doing it this way. So the couplings are going to come off, so let's just chop those off. They're only plastic. The sort of the bottom plate of this is plastic, so they come off quite easily. We don't need any of that that's sort of lurking around. Now, could have cut this off with a knife because it's actually quite soft, but it's just simpler just with the Dremel. That bit as well doesn't do anything. Now we've taken the coupling off, so we'll just chop that out of the way, and just flatten it back a little bit to smooth it up. And on the back, same again, but there's a little bit more that needs to go off the back. And although it's not terribly important, It's really not that visible. Just going to fill this in just a little bit, just to so it's less distracting from the view, so that you can't see a big gaping hole if you get that far down on the track and kind of have a look underneath. So we're just going to fill that in very, very roughly. Now to do a clean on the wheels, now this is easy because we've got the lid off. So I use airbrush cleaning, but you can use lighter fluid or IPA and all sorts of things. I've got it on the rolling road, so it does already go, you can see. And we just hold the damp cotton buds that's got the airbrush cleaner on there. Just hold it against the wheel while the wheel's going around, and it will give it a bit of a polish. And you can see it's quite a bit off. And then we'll dry it, and then we'll do that until it till the cotton bud comes out clear. And we need to do that on each of the wheels. Now, I'm not sure if these are all pickup wheels in here. I think they're probably not, but it's only 2, I think. But anyway, we'll give them all a clean anyway, because why not? If you haven't got the top of your logo off, you just have to kind of angle it in a certain way that you can access, the cotton bud onto the rims of the wheels. And you can see on there we've added in the coupling on the back. We've attached that one to this bottom part of the chassis, and the front one attaches to the sort of the plate, the running plate. So just gonna make sure this is all done. Now, once the model is fully painted and lacquered, it will be we'll do it again anyway, because we're going to get overspray and all sorts of things. But this just gets us in a good sort of starting position. And just inside as well where the pickups touch, make sure we do those as well. So on the chassis, these lugs here, these kind of got a texture on top where like a simulated coal sort of effect. But we're just going to put some proper coal in there anyway. So I just want to flatten them down a little bit, just so we can get the space to put coal in rather than just sticking it on the top. So we're just going to flat that down with the Dremel, with the grinding disc, and it's just got to be deep enough so we can get in 1 or 2 grains of coal. And it's probably best if we fit the coal while the body is off, otherwise we'll end up gluing it to the body and all sorts of mess. Anyway, so this is the chimney that we've made. So this was 3D printed. I've made quite a few of these now, so they fit nice. These were designed by a good friend at Dipley's Layout. I'll put a link to his YouTube channel and his Instagram in the description. And I'm going to just pilot that out with this drill bit. I think it's a 2mm. Luckily, we've still got a bit of the chimney left, so it should be quite a nice fit. And we'll drill it with the Dremel, because it will take ages otherwise. And you need to take the body off, because there's that metal bit that goes underneath from the chassis, so you can't actually drill through it, as I found out before when I tried. So just going to clean that up, and then hopefully that should just pop in there, and it's not a terrible fit. We'll super glue that from underneath a bit later on. And these holes here, now on the original model, I think the very first ones that came out had handrails, or the prototype did, and the Centenary one did as well. So that's the marks where those would have gone. So I'm just gonna make a little pilot with this, and we'll use the Dremel again to drill that out, and we'll fit the rails in a little bit. So we're going to flat this all back and get rid of all of the livery and the writing on the side. There's lots of Smokey Joes around, so I thought I'd have something a little bit different. This one's for my layout, so just something that I fancied adding to mine. It'll probably sit in a siding somewhere and not do much. So this is 600 grit Tamiya sponge. These are quite good if you've not used them before. Again, I'll put a link to these in the description. They're very useful. You can cut them into tiny pieces. They come up. They're much bigger when you get them big as your hand. You just cut little bits off as you go. To get rid of that mold line on the top, I'm using a sandpaper because I don't have any Tamiya sponges as coarse as that. Well, that's a 240 grit, I think. And then we'll just flatten it back with 600 out of 1000 of the Tamiya sponge, just to kind of polish it off. And our primer that we're going to put on in a minute will cover most of this anyway. And then we'll take the numbers off the side as well. I'm not sure if this will show through anyway, but sometimes the paint, if it's thick enough, it'll just leave a line showing through the primer. So I just wanted to flatten that back a little bit. Again, we use 600 to get rid of the main of it, and then 1000 and 1500 just to make it a bit smoother. So for the handrails, we're going to use the inside of this wire. This is a single strand inside here, and I've used it before, it just works out perfect. Just going to cut off a piece that we need for each side. And then we can just strip that the cover off. Now is the fabric on these, so it's really nice to come off, and it's quite useful to use the fabric for different sorts of ropes and all sorts of things in other models. So we'll keep that bit aside. Now we need these as flat as we can, and they're not obviously straight. So the easy way to do this is just to roll it. So I've got a piece of card. I'll just roll it on the cutting mat. I need to give it a couple of goes, but they go fairly flat really quickly. Hasn't got to be perfect because on our little pug, it's going to be heavily weathered anyway, so it's quite likely it's going to be rusty and bent. So we may bend them up a bit more once they're on. So that will go there. Let's we need to make the bends where it fits in. We're just going to poke this through rather than making any sort of standoffs or anything like that. So we're just going to make a right angle there. Pop that in, and then we just need to mark the other end so we know where to bend it. So just make a little mark on there. Then I can take it away and then bend it. Trim off the excess. We don't need much. Don't need too much poking through, otherwise could end up failing the motor or making a short or something weird. So just cut off as much to go through the body, just for us to be able to glue the back of it. So let's pop the chimney in place, and we'll glue that from underneath. Just need to make sure at the end when we go back, we'll, once this is properly set, we'll go back and trim that to make sure there's nothing sticking through, because it fits quite snugly on that sort of round piece on the metal plate. So there we go, leave that for a few seconds to set. Then we're ready to go. So we're going to prime this with Vallejo black surface primer, and that's going to be our final colour. We're not going to add any different paints. I don't see any real reason for that. This will be fine. We'll use this with a lacquer over the top, and this will look just right. Now the little brass fittings I'm not too worried about. I may sort of brush those back with a wire brush or something like that, just to get some of that copper showing through just a little bit, but we don't need much of it because it's going to be proper filthy. Now inside, there's quite a bit of detail inside there, and we're going to do just a tiny bit of detailing in there. So I've painted that as well in black primer. Then once your primer is dry, you can see if there's any marks or anything you want to polish out. And I think we polished up a couple of bits on that, and just refinished the body again once we'd flattened the bits out. So this metal plate needs painting as well. So again, we'll use primer for this, black primer. It makes everything look the same, gives us a good sort of starting position, just unifies the whole model. So just get every direction from underneath, on its side, and so on. And then we need a bit inside on that foot plate. So next is our decals. Now on the body, off camera, I've added another layer of we've used a thing called clear, which is like a floor polish. It's got an old sort of technique, and it's not something you can buy anymore, unfortunately. Exactly the same as that, but I've used it because it dries really quick and it's quite nice and shiny. It gives you a nice smooth surface. But generally speaking, you would use a gloss lacquer of some sort of gloss varnish. Gives it a smooth surface, gives these decals a chance to sort of adhere properly. Now these decals I've bought recently because they were just the right size for something else, and I've not used them before, so I don't know what we're heading into. Anyway, so I've cut the letters out that I want. We're using PLA for Port of London Authority. The pugs we used by the PLA was kind of used to be where I lived, that sort of area. And just to distress them a bit, gonna pop them over with the 240 grit. Yeah, it just adds a few scratches. It doesn't make them as pristine and perfect as they currently are. And what I didn't realise at this point with these decals is that the carrier film is over the whole of the sheet. So I did eventually have to retrim those letters. Otherwise we'd end up with bits of carrier film all over. So I've cut them a little bit closer. So for this, we've got some warm water, not too hot, and in there is a little bit of washing up liquid as well, just a touch of that, just breaks up the surface tension. And then we're going to pop the letters in there one at a time, and we'll give it 30 seconds or so. And what we'll do once it's in place is we're going to use this microsol, and microsol will soften the decal, and it kind of thins it, and it looks a bit more painted on rather than just sort of sitting there on the top. So there's our letter P. This is the second one, by the way. The first one I managed to completely mess up. I was going to leave it in the video, but I missed it off the edit. But anyway, never mind. So it looks a bit shabby around the edges of that, but I will sort that bit out in a minute. So just going to sort of manoeuvre it gently into place. It's easier with the tip of a blade than anything else I found. Just have to be very careful. And we'll get the others. The others are on there, and we'll put the rail one. The only reason putting the handrail in is just to give me a line, because that's what you're going to compare these letters against. Once you see it visually, you're going to judge whether it's straight based on that rail. So we're going to line it up in some way with the rail. Then we need to take the rail out, and then we've got microsol on our brush. First of all, we'll just flat it back. Make sure we get all as much water off as we can, and make sure it's any air bubbles underneath and so on. And then the microsol, just really gently sort of drop it on. You don't want to brush it in, otherwise you'll end up moving the decals. Now this has the effect of thinning your decal off a little bit, so just be careful about trying to reposition them after you've used the microsol. Otherwise you could damage them, and you've got to start all over again. So we're again, we'll just put the handrail into place, and then we can use that to straighten it up and use the other side as a reference now. So we need to check this from different angles from the top as well to make sure they're kind of aligned from the top, so they start and finish in the similar place. And you can see we put a number 20 on this. The locos in the PLA, which is numbered, you know, number 6, number 84, whatever the case is. So we've just put a plain number on there. So once we're happy with all that and it's dried, we just give this half an hour or so to dry. Probably just give it overnight to be fair, but we'll give this a matte coat of varnish. This is vallejo varnish, and we'll give it 2 coats of that, and that will make them look much better once it's dried, and it obviously seals them in and protects them as well. So an essential step, definitely. And then on the inside, and we do everything else as well, yeah. And again, it just unifies everything, ties everything together. So there's quite a lot of detail in the cab, so I wanted to do to make something of it. We're not going to go to spend too much time on this. So the inside is already black, so in the brush we've got quite a dark grey. I'm just going to use that just to kind of give a mottling effect, just to kind of break up the blackness inside. So we've got some bits on the cab roof and on the sides, and a little bit on that on the firebox. And then we're going to dry brush. This is steel, and you've seen dry brush before hopefully, but basically we've got the tiniest amount of paint on the brush we could manage to get on, and then we've rubbed it off on a tissue, and then we can just gently brush across, and any of the raised details will just take some paint, and it gives us this kind of effect, which is really nice. Now they probably are going to be brass, I'm sure, but I'm not sure how clean they're going to be, judging on what I have in mind for the rest of the loco. So we're just going to leave them in silver. It's just to make them stand out a bit more, and then the same on the chassis as well, just on these springs. And then we need to fit our handrails on, and we're just going to glue these into place. So you can pop them through and then glue them from behind. It's easier that way. So you can see the holes. We just super glue it in there, and that's it. Done. 10 seconds and that's going to be dry. And then just finally fit it together. So just make sure those springs go in. If you ever take one of these apart, just check where everything goes before you take it apart, because it looks very simple, but this has thrown me so many times before. The body just snaps on into place, and that's it. We're ready to go, ready for part 2, which I'll be filming over the next day or so, and this will then be weathered and ready to go. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this. I hope to see you for part 2, and have you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you very soon. Bye for now.